Sometimes, life has moments that feel completely ordinary at the time, but later, you realize that was when everything started to shift. Anthony, at 61, was a kind soul who always looked after the people he cared about. When he invited his nephew Eric to stay with us, I never imagined how much my life was about to change. I'll never forget Anthony's serious expression when he told me, "Daisy, Eric is a sensitive boy. You know he has trouble sleeping at night. Take good care of him, okay? He needs to get himself together before starting university." How could I have known that the very moment he left for 3 days to check out the house we'd been waiting for would be the one that turned everything upside down, leaving me alone with Eric? At 20, Eric wasn't a boy anymore. His tall frame, broad shoulders, and mature look made that clear. But to Anthony, he was still his little nephew. As for me, I couldn't help but feel a strange warmth and an inexplicable excitement whenever I was around him, no matter how much I tried to suppress it. There was always something about the way we interacted. But this time, being alone with him for 3 days, I couldn't shake the mix of excitement and nervousness. When Anthony got into the car, he turned to look at me one last time, saying, "3 days will pass quickly." Little did I know, those 3 days would completely change everything. Eric quietly walked over, adjusting his bag on his shoulder. "Sir," he said when our eyes met, offering that mischievous, yet sincere smile of his. "Looks like it's just the two of us now." His voice was relaxed, yet carried an undeniable depth. I felt a strange excitement bubble up in me. Eric had grown up, matured, but being alone with him, it felt different. What would happen that night? I couldn't predict it, but I knew one thing for sure. It was a night I would never forget. And that was the beginning of everything. The next morning, as the sunlight streamed into the house, I was busy preparing breakfast in the kitchen. After Anthony left, the house felt oddly quiet and peaceful. But that didn't last long. I heard footsteps on the stairs, signaling Eric was up. He appeared in the doorway, wearing a casual t-shirt and his hair a little messy. He looked effortlessly striking and warm. "Good morning, Daisy," he greeted me, his voice soft. His eyes met mine, and a faint smile tugged at his lips. "It smells amazing in here. What are you making?" Before I could answer, he moved closer, resting a hand lightly on my waist as he leaned in. "Smells delicious," he added, his tone playful but warm. The unexpected touch startled me, but not in a bad way. It felt strangely natural. "Just a classic breakfast," I replied, trying to steady my voice, to hide the slight tremble. "Do you want some?" I asked. "I'll eat whatever you make," he responded, his eyes scanning me subtly. It felt like he wasn't just in the kitchen, but his attention was fully on me. When we sat down at the table, the space between us felt smaller somehow. Eric spoke in his usual relaxed manner, but there was something different about the way he spoke this time. "You know, Daisy, you're incredibly attractive for your age," he said out of nowhere. His words were so direct and unexpected that I had to put my fork down. "Really? You shouldn't be saying things like that," I said, laughing softly, though I could feel my face flush. "You're exaggerating a little," I added, trying to brush it off. "I'm not exaggerating," he said, his eyes slowly scanning me. "If I were in my uncle's shoes, I wouldn't leave you alone for even a second." I was at a loss for words, desperate to change the subject. I stood up quickly, gathering the empty plates. Eric leaned back in his chair, his gaze never leaving me, watching every small movement I made with an intensity that made my heart race. "We should celebrate," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Uncle told me you're buying the house. It would be a shame not to celebrate it." "That's not finalized yet," I replied, a small, involuntary smile tugging at my lips. "But sure, we can celebrate. Let's do something tonight. Just the two of us," he said with a smile. "You should dress up, wear something nice. We'll take pictures and send them to Uncle. We'll tell him, don't come back until you've bought the house. We've already started celebrating. What do you think, Eric?" I hesitated, unsure. "I don't want to disappoint you, but—" "Don't hesitate," he said, cheerful but firm. "You're still young, and you've got such an incredible figure. Wear one of your old dresses from your youth. Honestly, I'm curious to see how you'd look in one. His words completely caught me off guard. But with his gaze locked on me, so persistent and sincere, I couldn't bring myself to say anything but, "All right, we'll see tonight." Eric smiled. "It's going to be perfect, Daisy," he said, a gleam in his eyes hinting at a night unlike any other. Anthony's words echoed in my mind. "He's a sensitive boy, Daisy. Take good care of him. He needs to get himself together before starting college." But Eric's behavior this morning didn't match that description. He was so relaxed, mischievous, and bold. His energy left me puzzled and oddly excited. His suggestion to celebrate that night stayed with me. At first, I thought it was unnecessary, but then I realized I didn't want to let him down. Maybe he really did deserve a different kind of attention. I prepared Eric's favorite dishes: chicken curry, creamy pasta, and a fresh herb salad, with garlic bread on the side. After the food was ready, I went upstairs to pick out an outfit. In my wardrobe, I found a green dress I hadn't worn in years. As I slipped it on, I caught my reflection in the mirror. If this still fits, I must have taken good care of myself, I thought. But it felt a little too bold. When I went downstairs, Eric was already in the living room, wearing a white shirt. I couldn't help but notice the way his gaze lingered on me. "That dress looks absolutely stunning on you," he said, admiration in his voice. I felt my cheeks flush slightly. "Thank you, Eric. You're looking quite sharp yourself," I replied. He smiled and pulled out a chair for me at the table. Dinner was warm, the conversation easy. Eric was witty and sincere, but the way his gaze lingered on me, just a little too long, left me feeling both uneasy and strangely flattered. I could feel it in the air. This wasn't going to be an ordinary evening. As we sat at the table, Eric leaned in slightly. His voice dropped, intimate and deep. "Thank you for tonight. Daisy, everything's amazing, but I think it could be even better." "More exciting," Eric said, his eyes locking with mine. There was something in his gaze, something I couldn't quite place. A longing? A desire? His words and tone left me flustered, unsure of how to react. I felt the heat rising to my cheeks, forcing a nervous smile. Noticing my unease, Eric grinned and tried to lighten the mood. "Let's call Uncle," he said, suddenly pulling out his phone. Before I could react, he was behind my chair, his hands resting lightly on my shoulders. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver down my spine, and my heart raced. His breath, so close to my ear, felt almost tangible. When Anthony's face appeared on the screen, Eric immediately spoke with an upbeat tone. "Uncle, we've already started celebrating," he said, turning the camera to show the beautifully set table. That's when I realized I was in the frame too. Eric still standing behind me, his hands on my shoulders, his face inches from mine. Anthony chuckled, his voice full of delight. "So, you're saying I shouldn't come back until I've bought the house, huh?" "Exactly," Eric replied, leaning in just a little closer to me. I could feel his fingers lightly brushing my shoulders, and though I wanted to pull away from the camera, I didn't want to ruin Anthony's happiness. All right, Anthony laughed. "I'll check out the house and head back as soon as I can. You two, keep enjoying yourselves." When Eric ended the call, I let out a deep breath, though it didn't do much to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. I thought back to Eric's previous visits, how he had always been a bit mischievous but endearing. But this time he was different. His boldness, his charm, they were impossible to ignore, and they stirred something deep inside me. I found myself comparing this moment to my marriage with Anthony. How long had it been since he truly saw me, paid attention to me? Lately, his focus was entirely on work, leaving me feeling invisible. Now, with just a few moments of Eric's attention, I realized how deeply I missed feeling desired, seen, and alive. Lost in my thoughts, I didn't notice Eric getting up until he moved to the corner of the living room. He connected his phone to the speaker and started playing a soft, romantic song. In the dim light, I watched as he turned back to me, his expression calm but determined. Taking a step closer, he extended his hand toward me. "Daisy, would you dance with me?" he asked, his voice gentle but undeniably persuasive. His request caught me off guard, and my heart pounded in my chest. Eric, are you sure? I whispered, my voice barely audible. He smiled, moving his hand closer. I'm sure. It's just a dance, Daisy. Don't you think we deserve a little fun tonight? At that moment, all the confusion and turmoil within me shifted into something different. I couldn't resist Eric's outstretched hand. As I placed my hand in his, a spark ignited within me, the moment his warmth touched my skin. Eric gently guided me to the center of the living room. One hand rested on my waist, the other held mine softly. Then, he switched off the lights, leaving only the flickering glow of the candles on the table. The warm light danced across the room, creating an almost magical atmosphere. The music video playing on the TV added a rhythmic ambience that pulled us deeper into the moment. We began to dance, and as Eric's hands tightened slightly around my waist, I could feel my heart pounding with every step. When I tilted my head to look at him, his gaze was locked on me, filled with passion and determination. That look, it unraveled something deep inside me, shaking me to my core. As we moved together, the space between us seemed to vanish. Eric's face drew closer, his breath brushing against my skin. The physical closeness intensified the forbidden pull between us. Any resistance, I thought I had crumbled in that moment. As we swayed to the music, Eric leaned down slightly, his voice a soft whisper in my ear. I can feel the youth and desire inside you, Daisy. I see it in your eyes, the need to escape this monotonous life, even if it's just for a moment. But you don't realize how that longing, that young woman inside you, radiates through your body, keeping you forever young. His tone was gentle, yet filled with a conviction that cut right through me. His words sent waves of excitement and chaos crashing through me. My heart raced, my breaths quickened. I was fighting against what he was awakening in me, but I was losing. Eric, what are you doing to me? I whispered, my voice trembling, barely audible. You're stirring up all the emotions I've tried so hard to bury. I couldn't deny it. I wanted to know the truth he was speaking of. Eric paused, his eyes locking onto mine, studying me. But there's a truth about you that even you don't know, he said softly, his voice steady but laden with meaning. I couldn't tear my gaze away from him. What truth, Eric? Tell me, I said, my voice shaky as the tension between us reached its peak. Eric didn't look away. I like you, Daisy. A lot. But the real truth is, you shouldn't keep suppressing these feelings anymore. You've shut yourself off for so long, hiding everything you feel deep inside. But it's time to stop, he said, his voice filled with a mix of passion and tenderness. His words sent a storm raging inside me. I didn't know how to respond. My lips parted slightly, but no words came out. My breath hitched, and I could only whisper, Eric. The moment felt charged, and I was torn between fear and longing for it to continue. Eric stared at me for a moment in silence, then, without warning, he moved closer, closing the gap between us. When his lips touched mine, it felt like a fire ignited within me. The kiss was filled with passion, an explosion of emotions that had been locked away for far too long. My heart pounded so hard it felt like it might burst, and yet, as I kissed him back, I surrendered completely, letting the flames consume me. Eric pulled back for just a moment, his breathing heavy. Just like that. I knew you were drawn to me, he whispered, his words full of confidence. When he kissed me again, the thought of resisting didn't even cross my mind. This kiss was deeper, more intense. My body instinctively leaned closer to him, my hands gripping his shoulders for balance. I was overwhelmed by his boldness and determination, but I was equally swept up in the magic of the moment. Yes, I whispered, my voice barely audible. But it sharpened the tension between us. I won't deny it anymore. Even if it's wrong, I want to experience everything. I met his stunned gaze with a faint smile and added, Didn't you say you like things to move quickly, Eric? Daisy, he murmured, but before he could finish, his hands found their way to my waist. In that moment, we both knew there was no turning back. The pull between us was too powerful to resist. Eric's hands wrapped firmly around my waist, guiding me gently toward the couch. The romantic music continued to play softly in the background, and the dim lighting made the atmosphere feel even more intoxicating. My heart raced as everything started to feel surreal, but I gave in completely to the moment. At that instant, any remaining barriers between us completely disappeared. As I lay back on the couch, Eric leaned over me, his movements deliberate yet unhurried. He positioned himself carefully, his knees on either side of me, closing the distance between us. Our breaths intertwined, so close that I could feel every exhale. My eyes locked with his, drawn to the raw desire and determination in his gaze. His warmth and presence surrounded me completely. "Are you ready?" he whispered, his voice low and intense. His eyes burned with both longing and certainty, as though he was sealing the beginning of something that could never be undone. I parted my lips slightly, trying to steady my breathing as I stared at him. My heart was pounding, my thoughts scattered, but I was completely captivated by the intensity of the moment. "Yeah," I whispered, not even trying to hide the excitement in my voice. In that moment, I felt something inside me shift. I knew everything was about to change, and there was no turning back. As everything started to speed up, my body responded automatically. My legs, which I hadn't even realized were tense, began to tremble. Eric glanced at me and grinned. "I love how fast this is," he said, reaching out to adjust my hair. The music shifted, cranking up my excitement even more. Eric was drenched in sweat, and so was I. It felt like I was 25 again. The more I remembered being young, the more fired up I became. Eric didn't slow down. He kept that quick pace, never rough, always gentle, as if he already knew exactly what I needed. Then suddenly he stopped and we switched places. Now I was on top, looking down at Eric's face. I began moving faster, my heart pounding in rhythm with his heavy breathing. I could hear the tremor in his voice when he said, "I'm even more in awe of your energy right now." His whole body shook, and then he finally let himself go. Eric got up slowly and steadily, then walked with me to the bedroom. Once we stepped into that space, lit only by the soft glow of candles, a peaceful, calming vibe wrapped itself around us. We lay down together on the bed. Eric wrapped his arm around my waist and pulled me closer, my head resting on his chest. I could hear the steady beat of his heart. In that moment, everything else felt so distant. All that mattered was the comfort of being right there beside him. Before I closed my eyes, I started thinking about Anthony coming back. We still had 2 more days of just me and Eric. The thought stirred me up, but also brought a mix of feelings. I didn't want to spoil the magic of the moment, though. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, focusing only on what was happening right then. It felt as if the whole world could exist out there, but in that moment, it was just us. I'm dying to tell you about the other 2 days we spent, but right now, I just want to stay in this moment. You'll want to stick around for what's next, because this story isn't over yet. Stay tuned. If you've made it this far, you know my stories hit deep. There's so much more to share, and trust me, you won't want to miss a thing. Don't forget to hit that follow button, turn on notifications, and drop a comment about the story.